next to Hashem. Tonight's lesson is 7 lights of the Spirit. 7 lights of the Spirit. I get permission from old Isaac to go a little bit deeper. So because the Trail to Tranquility is written for the general world public, but here for our Muna group, our Muna hour, that they're much more advanced and you've learned the principles of Muna in depth, learned a lot of things. So what we're doing is we're taking Isaac's teachings on spiritual awareness, and what really old Isaac did, but he didn't say it in the book. He paralleled it to Kabbalistic teachings. I want to show how we get spiritual awareness from connecting to our souls. Now, when the Torah in Genesis, the Torah in Bereshit, says that we're all created, but B'Tselem Elokim, but a man in Hashem's own image, what's it mean? Just like there are divine spheres of godliness, each of our souls has divine spheres. And when, just like the part of a body, if you're physical, one person has developed arms and developed legs, developed muscles, another person is underdeveloped. The same thing with souls. With spiritual awareness, we develop our spiritual muscles, the spheres of our soul, and we're going to see how we do this. Okay, so first of all, we asked ourselves a lot of questions about spiritual awareness, how to attain. Last week, we spoke about how to attain spiritual awareness. And the 2 and 3 weeks ago, we spoke about what spiritual awareness is. And we compared spiritual awareness, compared it to sensual awareness, which is the senses of the body. And this is spiritual awareness is the senses of the soul. And this we understand why our great sages, they can either, not even prophets, because they're not prophets, they're sages. The Talmud says that a wise man is greater than a prophet. What does it mean by a wise man? A wise man is not only that he's intelligent, and his IQ is up, but his soul is developed. Why is it even higher than IQ? Because a person could be an IQ, you know, there are physics professors that maybe have 140 IQ, but then they put on their left shoe on the right foot and the right foot, the foot they're on. I remember professors in university that didn't tie their shoes. Okay, you see their emotional intelligence was low. They didn't have spiritual awareness. But our sages, what happens with spiritual awareness? And we spoke about all previous lessons about how spiritual awareness develops our soul. It enhances our personal potential so much because our soul is a tiny part of the divine. And when a person does develop a soul, he's limited to the bodily potentials. The body's an animal. That the Zohar tells us that the body is an animal and the soul is an angel. That's a body is part of it, flesh and blood, part of the elements of this earth. And that's why it decomposes after it finishes its physical life, but the soul never decomposes because it's a tiny sort of godliness. So the more we connect with our soul, the more we connect with our divine attributes, and we connect with divine wisdom, this takes us way beyond human intellect. So our sages that have highly developed spiritual awareness through their good character traits, through their observance of Torah, through their extensive learning of Torah, and all phases of Torah, the revealed Torah, the esoteric Torah, they have developed their souls to a sense where when we say people don't understand on the secular side of the fence, how come you guys ask your rabbis everything? And we know we have a thing. The first thing people say, how do I find a good rabbi? So they found out who his rabbi is, who's his spiritual guide. Because if a person considers himself end of the line, the guru, like a lot of people, the guru, he doesn't take advice from anyone. He thinks he's the top man. He's the Moses. No, we know there's only one Moses. And we continue on up the line through the stages. And we always we search for a spiritual guide who's on a higher level than us, just like we search for a physical coach. They're an athletic coach that knows how to put us in fitness, knows better than what we do for ourselves. He can show us how to get better physical shape. So our spiritual guide brings us in spiritual shape. All right. So one thing that the novice, the person who is new to spiritual awareness, asks himself the same question as someone who's been spiritually aware, and this is a lifelong endeavor, because the Torah tells us that we can't stop until we reach Hashem. And nobody's reached Hashem except Moses on Mount Sinai. And even then, Hashem says, Moses, you're only seeing a tiny, tiny, tiny little revelation, but he was still more than anyone else ever saw. So we ask ourselves, how do I know that I'm spiritually aware? How do I know that I've cultivated my spiritual awareness? Where am I holding? So we said it's a question everybody asks. But King Solomon, he once said the soul is never satiated. This is fine. This is the difference between coveting and wanting more of what we call in Hebrew gashmias, wanting more money or more physicality, more physical amenities. That's not good, because then we say for here, when it comes to the physical side, a person must be happy with his lot in life. When it comes to the spiritual side, a person is allowed and encouraged to have insatiable spiritual hunger. I want to get closer to the Almighty. I want to know the Almighty better. I want to develop my soul as much as I possibly can. So spirituality knows no confines and knows no limits. Just keep going and going and going. But one thing I want to qualify, don't be upset with yourself ever. I spoke to a person today, a really good person, and now we're in the month of Elul before Rosh Hashanah. And he says, Rabbi, I'm disappointed in myself doing that. I said, no, wait a second. I said, if you're disappointing yourself, that's not real tshuva. What do you think? Strive for more, strive to be better. And tshuva, penitence, has to be with a smile on your face. Hashem doesn't want us beating ourselves up. So thank Hashem for what you have and ask Hashem for help you to what you want. You want to improve yourself. We ask Hashem. So how do we assess ourselves? We look at the 7 spiritual lights. A little diagram here, so it's easy to point to them. And the spiritual lights is chesed, loving kindness, then Gevorah, that's heroism, stern judgment, tiferet, beauty, netzach, eternality. Then we go to Hod. Hod is splendor, and Yesod, that's the foundation, and Malchut. Malchut is Emunah, that's kingship, but that's really the Emunah. We're going to see how these 7 spiritual lights enhance our souls, bring us close to Hashem, and let us know ourselves, and it could light years move us ahead in spiritual awareness. Okay, so I will emphasize, if you want to write the 7 points down, I'll emphasize, but you can always see, like every week, you can see the replay of Emunah Hour on laserbeams.com, and more than welcome. Okay, so our today's lesson is really a practical lesson in Kabbalah. It's how the 7 divine spheres of godliness manifest themselves in the spiritually aware soul on a daily basis. And we see this on a daily basis. We're not talking about, people talk about this living room Kabbalah and all. They said, no, that's not the real deal. That's not the real deal. They usually, unless they know Gevorah very well, they don't know what they're talking about. People say the Kabbalah, and it's a fad thing. Like when Madonna learns Kabbalah. No, she's not learning the real thing. She's doing some fad thing. But when we learn real, practical, applicable Kabbalah, it brings our souls closer to Hashem. And we get closer to Hashem, our emotional life, our emotional health gets much better. And when our emotional health gets much better, our physical health gets better, because the body is not made for emotional suffering. When a person has stress and a person has emotional suffering, it brings on cardiac problems, it brings on respiratory problems, it brings on digestive problems, a whole long thing. So we know that by enhancing our soul, that right away goes to enhancing our physical health. And many physical ailments come from a problem in the soul, because what Hashem does, Hashem gives each person what that person needs, the impetus, the incentive to get closer to him. So sometimes a person has a physical problem, a medical problem. The doctor doesn't know what it is, but they said, Rabbi, I got this problem. And we've seen there are people right here that come to me with physical problems, and think, wait a second, what's the message here? And try and understand the message, what Hashem is giving. And we've tried to process the spiritual message, and with no medicines, no nothing, they've seen big relief. You could hear that for people. If somebody wants to tell the story, they know. I'm not, I don't want to invade people's privacy, but there are people right here learning with us right now. Okay. Our parameter number 1 corresponds to the sphere of chesed, sphere of loving kindness, the top sphere. Chesed is loving kindness. Okay, so this is peace. How do we know if we have spiritual awareness? Is when we have peace, which is both inner peace and external peace. What's the opposite of peace? It's anger. It's not war, it's anger. Because there's domestic peace, the opposite is anger. And that's why all the time we're working against anger. Anger is evil inclination. Anger, how you say, well, we have so much against anger. Why don't you work on greed? Why don't you work on something else? Anger immediately makes the divine soul leave a person. As soon as a person is angry, all these 7 lights of the soul, they're out the window. They're out the window, and they're substituted with darkness, because there's no void in spirituality. Either you have light, Your soul is illuminated or it's dark. So when a person is angry, what is a person angry? If we think back to our very first principle of Emunah, we learn that the Creator alone did, does, and will do everything. So the expression when a person is angry, that person is making a statement that he or she doesn't like the way the Almighty is running the world. And that is heresy. Okay, so as soon as they have something here, the divine lights, that comes from Hashem, bye-bye. We're out the window. They have a short circuit and the soul becomes dark. As soon as the soul becomes dark, then the dark side comes in, and that's negative emotions, that's stress, that's anxiety, that's depression. And the only way to get out of depression, people realize it's not the meds, it's not the only way to get out of depression is to enhance Emunah, enhance our trust in Hashem. That's why I've been learning all these lessons in Emunah and all these lessons of Bitachon to strengthen our souls, and believing Hashem strengthens our souls straight, because this gives us inner peace and puts a smile on our face. We can walk around no matter what's going outside, the political upheaval and the COVID and the Delta variant and the new variant and this variant. No worry, life, it's all from Hashem. And a person's not worried. That's what I have to do. Puts on a mask, gets a vaccination, Okay, but what he has to do? Everyone consult their own doctor, whoever their own doctor, their rabbi. Better have the doctor and the rabbi and do what you're told to do. And that's it. Finished. It's all up to Hashem. This is our basic effort in life. But we learned about bitachon, we learned about trusting Hashem. We know that we have to make our basic effort. We can't lie in bed in the morning and say, oh, Almighty, give me an income. We have to pound the pavement and do what we have to do. But once that's done, don't break our heads open. It comes from Hashem. Our income comes from Hashem. So our first parameter in recognizing the degree that we have spiritual awareness, how much are we at peace with ourselves and how much are we at peace with the world? Now, our coming lessons, after tonight we're finishing our unit on spiritual awareness. Our coming lessons, when we talk about make 3 levels of peace, which is making peace with the Almighty, making peace with ourselves, and making peace with our fellow human being. Okay, so peace, I'm going to a little introduction to this because this corresponds to the top sphere, which is chesed, and that loving kindness. Peace is a direct indicator of spiritual awareness, since arguments, anger, and cruelty all stem from a lack of spiritual awareness, exact opposite of peace. So the more we gain spiritual awareness, the more we're sympathetic for other people, the more we're sympathetic for other creations. A person with spiritual awareness is going to be kind to animals. He's never going to do something cruel to an animal. When you see somebody being cruel to an animal, it's no spiritual awareness, because a person that's spiritually aware knows that animal, that's a lovely creation of Hashem. A plant is a lovely creation of Hashem. A rock is a creation of Hashem. And a person that's spiritually aware doesn't walk down the sidewalk and litter the sidewalk, because everything she does is to better society, to beautify society, because they're happy they got inner peace and they don't make turmoil. More trash on the street, that creates turmoil in society. And they don't want to make difficulty. Why should I make the city sanitary worker work harder? It's not going to do that. If you think maybe something convenient, rather than keeping a soiled tissue in his or her pocket till they walk to a trash can another block. And a lot of people just throw it right down. Not going to do that. A person with spiritual awareness, he won't smoke in public to rob another person their oxygen. And even the people that you see this with smokers, they're not concerned with another person. They're concerned that they have a right to smoke and it's public property. They don't realize that secondhand smoke. Talk to a doctor. You can plug in to Google secondhand smoke and see that it's more toxic than direct cigarette smoking. Just everything. You can see a person who's spiritually aware, and it's just a matter of considerate. Because when we talk about consideration, everyone has their relative level. This person's level of ethics, this person's level of ethics, this person's level of moral, this person's level of morals. A different society have different things, and there are Far Eastern societies that they allow themselves to round up dogs and cats, and it's free game, and cook them, just like somebody would go deer hunting. This is, I have to think twice about that. So we go according to the ethics we receive from the Almighty. That's the ethics that Moses brought down from Sinai. These are absolute ethics. It's absolute truth, what you see in the 10 Commandments. We see the Ten Commandments not relative to any society. In other words, you're not allowed to murder. The person's not allowed to murder. There's many societies that justify genocide because they're a nation that they don't like. They just can't do that. We're not talking about we talk about peace. We're talking about absolute ethics or Ten Commandments, what Moses brought down from Mount Sinai. Now, take a person tell you a story, what it means, absolute peace with the world. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. In the 1930s, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld was the head rabbi of Jerusalem. He was head rabbi of Jerusalem, and this were the days where it was before 1948 that the land of Israel, then the British called it Palestine. It was controlled by the British, and Jerusalem was mixed with Jews and Arabs. Okay, so he was walking down the market on the way to the Western Wall in the old city, and he's walking through the Arab market, and this 17-year-old Arab kid, he saw this rabbi, and saw the rabbi with the long Jerusalem garb, the black and white long coat, and he took a tomato and boom, bullseye, right on face. The tomato crashed on the rabbi's face and soiled his shirt, soiled his cloak. And he looked at him and he smiled and he said in Arabic, shukran. He said, thank you. He said, the boy, he was so embarrassed. He was so embarrassed. He realized that he did something bad to a righteous man, so eventually came and apologized and became the rabbi's close friend, the rabbi's bodyguard. And when the rabbi would walk to the wall from Mea Shearim, he lived in Mea Shearim, he'd walk to the wall in the morning, he would come and greet him at the Jaffa gate and escort him to the wall, make sure that nobody bothered him. This is a person of absolute peace, because Rabbi Sonnenfeld, he didn't see an Arab urchin throw a tomato at him. He said, Hashem wanted to have some kind of disparagement. If not from him, it'll be from someone else. He was in absolute peace with all the world. He saw Hashem in everything. This was the level of old Isaac. Old Isaac is very similar to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld and what we read in Trail of Tranquility about old Isaac, because they're all giants in spiritual awareness. Now, what happens when we increase and enhance our spiritual awareness? And that's the great thing about learning spiritual awareness together. You're not even feeling it, but by repeatedly learning week after week, spiritual awareness, week after week. And if you haven't read the Trail of Tranquility, I strongly encourage. But even reading the Trail of Tranquility, if the Trail of Tranquility is a bachelor's program, then our learning together in a moon hour, that's the master's program, and well on the way to the PhD program in spiritual awareness. So an increase in spiritual awareness, you know what it does for you? It decreases all the dissension-causing emotions. Anger, jealousy, revenge. Personal spirituality, definitely revenge. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he was not trying to punish that Arab and beat him up or send him to the police. This was from Hashem. Okay, so what happens? Anger and all these negative emotions, it's like a time bomb within us. So just like a police sapper would diffuse a time bomb, spiritual awareness pulls the firing pin out of all these negative emotions that are going on inside people. And you see husband and wife, sometimes they lose patience and they blow up at each other, or they blow up at children. Anytime we blow up at someone, it means that our spiritual awareness is out to lunch, because if we stop and even count to 3, 1001, 1002, 1003, we've defeated the evil inclination. That in spiritual awareness is the 3-second rule. Not like in basketball, where you can't be in the key for 3 seconds. The 3-second rule in spirituality is before you get angry, if you can count to 3 seconds and remember that everything comes from Hashem, and this is what King David said, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. I hold Hashem before my eyes always. That's finished. You're free. You beat the Yetzer, because the Yetzer wants you to react from the hip or from the lip. Now, a soldier knows that firing from the hip is inaccurate. Reacting from the lip is inaccurate. Okay, we want to react with our brain, because that is where the neshama, the holy soul, is. That is where our spiritual awareness is, up here. So the brain, as we learned in our lessons in spirituality, the brain has to overrule the heart. The brain has to dictate to the heart, to the right side of the heart, and that controls the show. and not the left side of the heart, which is the side of evil, dictate to the brain and vanquish the brain. Because when negative emotions weaken, positive emotions get strong. So what is Rabbi Nachman? Rabbi Nachman talks about this all through his teachings. Rabbi Nachman says, you know how you diffuse anger? Sympathy. Have sympathy. Husband comes home and your wife is upset. She's yelling at you. You say, what are you yelling about? Come from a hard day word. And he yells back at her. No, calm down. Hey, sir, do you know you've been out in the world all day long, and maybe she's been at home with laundry and with children. And if she does it, she keeps the home and takes care of the home. And the kids are make her crazy, or she had a crisis and she had a bill that she didn't know where she should pay. She had all kinds of things for. Before you get angry, be sympathetic for her. A wife, before you fire, you have that howitzer aimed at the front door, and we've been waiting to fire away at your husband all day long. And as soon as he opens the door, he hasn't taken his coat off, he hasn't put his jacket down. Boom! A 105 millimeter howitzer right to his brain. What do you want? Let the poor guy, let him come in the door. Let him take off his jacket. Let him sit down. Give him a cup of coffee. Sweetheart, had a nice day. That's fine. Okay. Be sympathetic for him, because now in the 21st century, especially with the COVID and lockdowns and this and that, there's a problem with customers, there's a problem with here. I spoke to a gym owner. Rabbi, what do? I don't know if next week they're going to be locked down or not. No, okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Hashem didn't let you go to first lockdown. Not going to let you go to the second lockdown. Certain not to get over to another lockdown. One way or another, Hashem doesn't need your gym to give you an income. You have here, you have there. Okay, don't worry about it. But we have sympathy for another person, sympathy for a child. People are impatient with the child. Maybe a child was bullied at school. Maybe it destroyed his whole day. Maybe a teacher, an unthinking teacher, embarrassed a child in front of the whole class. God, don't be angry. What are you doing this? What are you acting like this for? Calm down. My beloved son, my beloved daughter, sweetheart, something bother you? Okay, baby, don't know. And make a climate of sympathy. Substitute your anger for sympathy. Substitute your impatience for empathy. And you'll see, you'll uplift yourself and you'll uplift your whole family. You'll uplift everyone around you. You'll be charismatic. Everybody's going to want your company. Everybody's going to want to talk to you. This is spiritual awareness. Now, what happens in Western society? People, how are you? This and that. Okay, they're going to have a plastic, nice smile. They don't care how you are. Why don't you come to dinner? They don't want you for dinner. They're trying to say niceties, but after 5 minutes, they're worn off. When a person is sincere, you don't need to be convinced. You could feel it. You could feel it, because when a person is sincere, it's coming from inside. It's being reflected in the light off of the forehead. It's being reflected in the eyes. You could feel in your heart when you're hearing the truth and when you're being sold a bill of goods. We know that. So one of the best litmus tests of spiritual awareness is the amount of peace within yourself and within your environment. Okay, that's in your home, in your marriage, at your place of employment. Now, if you are more peaceful than you used to be, then you're doing a great job. You're going up the ladder. You're doing a great job. Like we learned in the first lessons, that you're moving up from level 5 to level 6 to level 7. Okay, now, if the outside world hasn't changed, and it's not only not changing, the outside world is getting worse, but you're getting better. You're not doing a good job. You're doing an outstanding job. I'm really proud of you. So keep up the good work. And that's our first level. That's the level of chesed, loving kindness. And this is how this sphere of loving kindness, that's called chesed, Chessed, this is how it's the first litmus test of our spiritual awareness. The second is Gevorah. Gevorah is courage and inner security. It doesn't mean that you've got 21-inch biceps. It doesn't mean that you're a sharpshooter. It doesn't mean that you walk around with a pistol on your hip with a firearm. It means that you're calm and collected because you have faith and you have trust in Hashem, and you know that Hashem loves you and Hashem wants you to succeed. Okay, but it's not always easy. Talk about a royal commando. That Hashem wants him to succeed, but it's going to have rough training on the way. That doesn't. The fact that life is rough, and the fact that Hashem wants you to succeed, not only Is it not contradictive, but it's logical? Because if a certain person doesn't have challenges in his or her life, person's never going to improve, never going to be better. So our second parameter, spiritual awareness, is where are we on the level of inner courage and personal security? When I talk about inner courage, it's not where you could stand up and fight 10 bullies. No, inner courage means when a 19-year-old student or 17-year-old high school student, 19-year-old university student, when everybody around him or her is doing drugs, but they know it's the wrong thing. Not me. It's also when people speak improperly or dress improperly. That's the wrong thing. It's not me. It's when we have the courage to go against what is politically correct. Politically correct, that doesn't mean it's right. That means there's a lot of things that the injustice and immorality is politically correct. In fact, we don't know, the media is so contradicts itself. Is the Me Too movement from all the abuse, the Me Too movement. But then the language and what they show on the media and all the media, it's got so much debauchery. It shows all this debauchery and panders debauchery, and then there's Me Too movement. Come on. True story. A woman in northeastern United States. She said, Rabbi, my daughter was molested at a bus station. Molested, what it means, because she wasn't, heaven forbid, she wasn't raped, but somebody came and somebody put a hand on her. She was wearing a mini skirt at the bus stop. And I said to her, I asked the mother, I said, how was your daughter dressed? And she said, she's got a right to dress any way she wants. But I say, you know why we have locks? We have locks because locks are to keep honest people honest. A crook, a thief, he'll try to break the lock. But there are people that can't stand the temptation. And somebody that's really immodest, she wonders why they touch her, but then she's tantalizing the whole world. This is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. So when you, young lady, you have the courage to dress proper and to appear proper and to respect yourself, you wouldn't see the princess, the daughter of the King of England, going around like that, because she's the daughter of the queen, she's the daughter of the king. She respects herself. And we have to realize that when we have a divine soul, we are the son and daughter of a king. And it's not, you can't go around doing like that what a worker in a cow shed does. Okay, so something else. The more a person fears or the more a person worries, worry makes a person drift away from Hashem. Why? Because a person that worries all the time lacks faith in Hashem. One of the things that we learned in our lessons in Bitochen, our Let's Entrust Hashem, the financial, Troy said, which had Bitochen is financial emunah. But it's to stop and think. If you're 45 years old, then every year you eat an average, roughly 1,000 meals. You're 45 years old, and unless you voluntarily refrain from eating, like on Yom Kippur, Hashem has fed you 45,000 times in a row. And there's food in your refrigerator, and everybody has food in the fridge. Some people more, some people less. But you could go to the fridge or you can go to your pantry and you've got something to eat now. Thank you, Hashem. Hashem never let you go. So if you've got something to eat now, and if you had something to eat for the last 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75 years, why are you worried that tomorrow you're not going to have something to eat? All right. That is a blemish in inner security and courage, which is the second of Gevorah. That's the second light of the Gevorah, the second light of the soul, right below loving kindness and chesed. Okay, so courage means proximity to the Almighty, because just like the Almighty is afraid of nothing, the person with courage is not afraid of anything. This is what King David says in Psalm 23, the most popular sonnet in the world, that everybody, every religion, they use it at funerals. In Psalm 23, though I walk in the valley of death, I shall not fear, for you are with me. What does King David say? Not I shall not fear because I'm an Olympic weightlifter or I'm an Olympic boxing champion. No, though I walk in the valley of death, I shall not fear, for you are with me, Hashem. Gam ki elech b'geit salmovis lo irara ki atay imadi. You are with me, Hashem. This is what gives me my strength. It's not the might of my right hand. Heaven forbid. Person thinks the might of my right hand, and then tomorrow is sick, and then he can't move his right hand. So courage, it doesn't mean that you can one-handed a John Wayne movie where you confront an enemy tank battalion single-handed. It means doing what's right with no trepidation. You're not afraid of people calling you a prude, or people calling you old-fashioned, or people calling you all kinds of names. I know we have a family with us that learns regularly with us, and family that raise beautiful, beautiful, beautiful kids. And I've never seen such courageous kids. In a school, a very modern school, all the girls dress in their minis and this and that. And one of their daughters, young lady, the nasty girls at school call her the nun because she comes with her body covered. That's what they used to call her. So I gave that young lady a blessing that she's going to have, and she will. She's not yet married. She's still, and she's done an early years university. But as I'm telling this, I'm thinking of this particular young lady that she's going to deserve. The Almighty's going to send her the best husband in the world. She's got courage. This Gevorah. When she could go and with all the peer pressure, and young ladies, it's very painful for a teenage girl to have a nickname, the nun, because they say you're prude, she's old-fashioned. Okay, and the girls do all kinds of things with boys and with drugs and with alcohol. She wouldn't think in a million years because it's not right. Her family is a very ethical, moral family, and they pass this on to the kids, and that's what they are. So a courageous person, he doesn't focus on his popularity, because popularity comes from Hashem. I can promise you that here in Israel or even America, the great spiritual leaders, they are very popular. You see people standing in line to get a blessing from them. Hundreds of people, they speak of, okay, they don't do a single thing to enhance their popularity if they're the real deal. Because a person who is spiritually oriented is not looking for popularity. It's not a politician to get elected. And there's something I oftentimes say to myself, okay, Laser, tell the truth, you're not running for office. Not something that would be politically expedient to whatever group I'm speaking to, even if something unpopular, is it truth? And I pray to Hashem, please help me, that everything should come out of my mouth is truth. And truth means your truth. Your truth. That shouldn't say a single thing that goes against your truth. This is when you're a spiritual seeker, you want Hashem's truth, not my own truth. Give an example. If you've got a guy who plays athletics, he's on the weightlifting team, he's on the Olympic weightlifting team of his country, and he happens to be a believing individual, and he weighs 260 pounds, and he's heavyweight weightlifter, and he's got tremendous biceps, 26-inch biceps, tremendous legs, it's humongous legs, he picks up humongous amounts of weight, but he sits on the bench, and he takes a sandwich. And if he is ashamed of his buddies to say grace, to say a blessing before he eats that sandwich, and to say grace after he eats that sandwich, he's the biggest coward in the world. I don't care how big his muscle. You're embarrassed to say thank you to Hashem for the food you eat. You are a sissy. You are a coward. On Gevorah, young man, you rate low. You got to work on yourself. Get back. You're doing too much time in the gym and not much time talking to Hashem. So when a person exhibits spiritual awareness, that is the type of courage that brings him close to Hashem. So the more some person gains spiritual awareness, the more he or she realizes that they're dependent on the Almighty and they're not dependent on anyone. You don't need approval from anyone. And this makes you so strong. Look how many people are waiting for a handout. She's like a beggar in the street. Okay, understand, a beggar in the street, he wants to buy something. He's waiting for a handout. Oh, please give me, he was asking for an alms, asking for a coin. Okay, give him a half a pound or give him a quarter, whatever you want to give him. He's asking for something. How about the people that fish for compliments? Being emotionally dependent is much worse than that beggar in the street that's asking for, hey, the guy's hungry. The guy's got no money. Who knows why he's got no money, but he's down and outer. to say if he would talk to Hashem and ask Hashem, he'd have the money. But so, okay, nobody taught him. Right? But still, a person that needs the approval of someone else, need Hashem's approval. Hashem's approval. That you don't even look at it. Once a person seeks Hashem's approval, you'll get plenty of approval from all types of things you won't even ask for. And one of the things that old Isaac teaches us, on level 10, that on his level, that a compliment and a curse, the same thing. This from Hashem, this from Hashem. So he doesn't get upset if somebody curses him. And if somebody compliments him, that's from Hashem too. Thank you very much. And if Hashem wants to bring him anguish, there are plenty of people in the world that be terrible messengers to bring anguish. And if Hashem wants somebody to do good and give him a compliment, there are wonderful people that do good. And one of the things we have to pray for, and this is something that regularly in my personal prayer, I ask Hashem, please let me be a conduit of bringing good to the world, and heaven forbid, I shouldn't do something detrimental, negative, the slightest harm to the slightest creation. There's something we all need to pray for. Okay, so people with spiritual awareness, they have inner security, and inner security, this takes it back. This is how the Gevorah, the courage creates inner peace, and it uplifts itself to the highest sphere of chesed, which is peace. The more we have inner peace, that on the lower level, we rise to the higher level. People know that they're not afraid about a boss that threatens them. Okay, we try their best at job. There's some people that have very abusive bosses. Okay, the boss threatens them, even though they try their best, they do a good job, because the boss won't let them hear something good because they might ask for a raise in salary. All right, the boss threatens you, that's fine. You know something? It'll be lovely to work against you for your competitor. If you want me to play on play team, I can play on a different team. That's fine. Okay, so rather than working with me, you want to work against me? That's wait and see what happens then. You know, a person with trust in Hashem, with the Gevorah, with confidence, with self-confidence, not afraid of anything. You can't threaten me. You know why you can't threaten me? Because my income comes from my Father in heaven, not from you. If you're lucky enough, then you'll be a conduit for my income. Now, maybe to give me my 1,000 quid a month or my $1,000 a month, Hashem gives you $10,000 a month. But as soon as you do not want to be a upright conduit for my income, there are plenty of other people that could do it. Plenty of other people. And a person that has this trust in Hashem that he gets from Gevorah, that gets from the second sphere, which gives him the inner courage, this gives him tremendous inner peace. Okay, and this is inner strength. This is inner strength. Inner strength comes from the second sphere, which is called the second light of spirituality, the light of Gevorah. And the more we cultivate this side of our lives, the more we gain inner calm, the more we gain courage, and the more we develop our inner security. Okay, so the parameter 3, that's Tiferet. Tiferet is beauty. Okay, we're down to Tiferet. Tiferet is 3. Now, happiness goes together with courage. Okay, Tiferet manifests itself as happiness. Okay, even though beauty, that's the direct translation, but it's more understanding. Tiferet is the happiness. It's inner joy. And it's independent of outside factors. And you can see, as we're talking about the 7 godly spheres, these are spheres of our soul, we can see how interdependent, how intertwining they are. They're not separate things. It's not like you've got on your plate, you've got peas, you've got corn, you've got chicken, you've got a piece of bread. No, they're not like that. It's all one. It's more or less like one dish cooked together, where everything is cooked together. Okay, what does it mean, happiness? I'm going to teach you something that's called the if-only syndrome. How many times have you heard people, if only? Okay, if only my husband made more money, I'd be happy. If only my husband could buy me a bigger home, I'd be happy. If only my boss gave me a raise, I'd be happy. If only I had a new Harley or a new Lamborghini, I'd be happy. If only Mark would propose to marry me, I'd be happy. No, that's all true. The people that say that if only are seriously misleading themselves, because happiness doesn't depend on a raise in salary, because if happiness depends on a raise in salary, once maybe the person will be happy for a few days, then it wears off. True story. A couple came to me with a marital problem. And the husband complained, says, Rabbi, my wife is the worst spendthrift you ever want. I said, what are you talking about? You can't talk about me. She's right there. She looked down. She didn't deny it. He says, Rabbi, do you know of a wife that has 353 pairs of shoes? I said, now, come on, you're exaggerating. He says, go. He says to his wife, go tell the Rabbi I'm telling the truth. She looked down. I say, 350. So I made a quick calculation. How many 52s go into 353? It came out really quick. I said, yeah, you've been married about 7 years, right? He says, how'd you know, Rabbi? Oh, it's easy. Because since you're obviously not giving your wife what he needs, you have to understand a wife gets a thrill for 7 days after she buys a new article of clothing or a new pair of shoes. This excites her for 7 days and it wears off. On the 8th day, she forgot what she bought. So since you're not giving her the joy she needs, she's looking for an outside gratification and it doesn't work. So since she doesn't get what it needs, every week she goes out and she buys a new pair of shoes. And that's why she got the blue shoes and the green shoes and the red shoes and these sneakers and that sneakers. And wow, that's it. And so we start talking, okay, so now you have to get back. And it's not if only, but see, he made a mistake in the way he's treating his wife. She made a mistake in thinking if I only had another pair of shoes, I'll be happy. No, young lady, it didn't work. You know, they're both. I'd explain to her what makes her happy and explain to him how to make her happy. And by make her happy, she'll reflect light back onto him because a husband is the sun, the wife is the moon. He's got to reflect light on her first, but then she reflects light back on him. All right. So the chances are, and how about the young lady that says, if only Mark proposes to marry? She dreams of this guy, the big man on the campus, this good knight in the white and a shining white armor and a shining white Maserati that marries her. Okay, the dream comes true, and 3 weeks after the marriage, she wants out. And you go after 6 months later and have this lousy divorce. Hey, young lady, where was your if only, your dream, Mark? Obviously, you're working for the wrong thing. You weren't looking for spiritual awareness because you don't have it and he didn't have it. But you have to understand, genuine happiness comes from within. It comes from within. You need, in the search for a mate, people ask me, especially now in Shidduchim, ever since Tisha B'Av was over. So we're already, this is big Shidduchim season in Israel. Okay, so people ask, what do I look for in a mate? So one thing, good heart. Everything else is commentary. Good heart is what you grow old with. Looks, money, certainly not. Good looks, okay. If it's a girl, you need a guy who looks 1 or 2 levels better than a chimpanzee, okay? If you need a girl, you know that she's acceptable, all right? But if she has a good heart, she's going to shine. She's going to be gorgeous because Estee Lauder and Helen Rubinstein have no makeup to make a woman so beautiful as what we spoke about before, the reflection of divine light from her eyes and from her forehead. A woman with spiritual awareness, she is a knockout. She's gorgeous. And husband just falls at her feet. Okay, she's everything is a Shem. She's with him. So this is going to make you do lessons tonight. You know, it's funny. I get satisfaction. Oh, my student, Rashi says that one's students are one's spiritual children. You know, and every father wants to see his daughters get gorgeous and see his sons be handsome and strong. And you can see, you guys get more beautiful from week to week. So genuine happiness comes from within. We said the story about Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. He didn't need anyone to tell him he was okay. And if he was insulted, that didn't bother him either. Okay, so that's the beauty. The beauty is the happiness, and this comes from the happiness of when you have the first sphere and the second sphere, the sphere of chesed, which is the inner peace, and the sphere of Gevorah, which is the courage. This gives you the third sphere, this happiness. It's the light that comes down. This is the light that descends. We didn't go higher than these 7. These are the 7 lower spheres. The higher spheres, the spheres of the brain, are Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, and Dat. Wisdom, understanding, and that goes even higher, and knowledge. But we're not talking about the intellectual spheres. We're talking about the emotional spheres that correspond to the 7 bottom. But we'll speak about that eventually. Okay, so now we are talking about Netzach. Netzach is the eternal sphere, okay? And the eternal sphere, that's our sole priority. Netzach is soul priority. So we're talking about body soul priorities. Netzach means eternality. Eternality. What's eternal? The body's not eternal. Body here, 80, 90, 100, 110 years, not going to go past 120. But the soul, it's a tiny part of the Almighty. The soul is here forever and for always. Okay, so more a person has spiritual awareness, then the more his soul is going to take priority over his body. So people who favor their appetites over their spiritual needs, they're tied to the material world. And being tied to the material world, that pulls the body down. The material, look at the difference in gravity. Material gravity pulls down. If you throw a stone, the stone is eventually going to fall. It's going to be in the air as long as it has the velocity of your throw, but then it's going to fall. But take a candle all the time seeks to go higher and go higher and go higher. Spiritual gravity goes up, goes up. The neshama, the soul, it seeks to go up and to get constantly closer to Hashem. So the more a person has soul priority over divine priority, this is netzach, eternality. The translation of netzach is eternality. And we're talking about body soul priorities, which is soul priority. Then the person is going to be constantly moving up and moving up and moving up. And by netzach, person is going to earn a place in the world to come. He's going to have expanded mind expansion. And one thing that is very conducive is self-purification of bodily urges. For example, we have bodily functions that are connected to marriage and that are connected to procreation of the race. If someone uses these functions outside the context of marital peace, it's going to bring the body down because the body's going to become very base and very crude. And that's the type of thing that ruins spiritual awareness. When netzach is misused, I'll say something else. Overeating and miseating brings the body down. If a person eats healthy, eating healthy is going to be wonderful for netzach, because what is that orientation of eating healthy? I'm eating healthy and I keep my body healthy, and I exercise not because I'm going for the biceps or the triceps or the glutes or the quads or the hamstring. No, because I need my body to be here for a long time, as much as it possibly can, so I can complete my mission on earth. So my eating is to house the soul, and my eating has to be oriented to keep my body as healthy as possible. So as soon as I eat because I like something, okay, so you like chocolate ice cream, you like Boston cream pie, but it's full of all these carbs and simple sugars and terrible for your body. Not even go into what it does to the body. We're not talking about nutrition tonight, but this is netzach. This destroys miseating and misusing the body. When a person has a strong fist, he's a carpenter, and he's to bang hammer and to build. And Hashem gave him a strong fist to his job in the world. He takes that strong fist and he hits somebody in the face because somebody got him angry. Heaven forbid, this misusing his body, misusing his hand. And this will he loses the sphere, the light, this fourth light of his soul, he'll lose it. So by purifying our body and by using our body for what we're supposed to use it for, in other words, to do the Almighty's will and to be good to our body, we have to take care of our health. It's very important to take care of our health. We cannot neglect our health. And so by doing that, we are going to get closer to Hashem. Let's go on to the fifth parameter. The fifth parameter is Hod. Hod is splendor, but Hod, I'm saying this, the literal translation is splendor, but Isaac describes Hod as improved physical and mental health. This is our physical and mental health. This comes from this sphere, this fifth sphere. Okay, as we said earlier, negative emotions, they take a tremendous toll on our mental and physical health. Feelings of worry, anxiety, stress, jagged nerves. Wow, they reduce our concentration. They reduce our health, get severe headaches, and then just name a few, lots more. And negative emotions, they cause a long list of indirect problems. And what do people do? They really blow it. They make things worse. They think that they're going to solve their emotional problems by alcohol or by tobacco or by drugs or by substances, and they're only further destroying their body. What we learned in Netzach, and then bringing down here, that to hold by destroying the next sphere above them, the fourth sphere, and now they're ruining the hold. They're ruining their physical and mental health even more. Look how people do, trying to relieve their physical and mental health. They don't solve anything, and they just make things worse. Now, thousands of years ago, our sages taught that spiritual awareness, it heals. Spiritual healing is the real deal. There are probably people that call faith healers. Yeah, there's a lot of false shows and fakes around. But according to the Talmud, according to the Zohar, sure. And it really works. People go to their spiritual guide and they get a solution for healing. If someone really knows that the connection to spiritual healing, there's a whole book about that our sage, the student of the Arizal, Rabbi Elazar Askari, who lived in 16th century Safed, in the Galilee. So the famous Kabbalist, he wrote the song Yedid Nefesh that we sing all the time on Shabbat. He also wrote a book called the Sefer Haredim, those who fear Hashem. In this Sefer Haredim, he wrote about how the parts of the body correspond to the various mitzvahs of Torah. And that every mitzvah of Torah, the 613 parts of the body that correspond exactly to the 613 commandments of Torah. Because the mitzvahs are all lights, the spiritual limbs of a person are also light. We have, in other words, it's a light. To make my finger go from here to there, that's a light. It corresponds. Now, for a quick example, if I want to make my fingers stronger, then when I'm wrapping my tefillin in the morning, I do it with intent. Well, how does a woman make her fingers stronger? When she bakes challahs for Shabbat, she needs dough. She makes her own bread. And while she's baking the bread, she's thanking Hashem for her bread. Wow, this really brings close to Hashem. And let me try that. If you buy store-bought bread, especially for Shabbat, try baking your own bread and have your house coming into the Sabbath with the smell of fresh baked challahs. Your husband's going to fall at your feet. You can't resist this. This is something magical. It's something magical. Okay, so we see that any heart specialist today, any cardiologist will tell you, look, emotional stress, it's not good for your heart. So when we strengthen our lights of our spirit, we certainly relieve emotional stress. Okay, so this is directly contributes to our emotion, our spiritual awareness, and our whole by developing our splendor, our level of splendor. And how do we do this? We continue on with the body, soul priorities, and we do good things with the parts of our body. Even something with that, we don't have to know why. You help a little old lady cross the street. Okay, a person that has, someone had a problem with their wrist. I told them to say Psalms. I told them to put a coin in the tzedakah box. A coin, by taking a coin, you have your wrist, and you're doing something very wonderful. That coin is going into a charity box. You're putting a coin in charity. This is going to heal the wrist. Now, the doctor that goes and says, oh, you've got a metacarpal problem. He right away wants to do an operation. But the metacarpal, they're not logical. They're not logical because what they do, they open up the nerve casing, and the nerves are exposed. And they say, oh, but that relieves pressure on the nerve. But now the nerves are exposed. Why did Hashem create a nerve canal? Okay, this is a lot of things in medicine, since they are not compatible with spirituality, they are not logical. They're just not logical. So it's always good if you have your spiritual guide that knows physiology, knows medicine, to consult with him, tell him what the doctor wants to do before the doctor wants to do it. Because sometimes there could be a much easier situation. Okay, I'm going to move down to parameter number 6, or light number 6, which is our giving, receiving priorities. Yesod. Yesod, this is called, it corresponds to personal holiness. I'm not going to talk about the personal holiness side, but we already mentioned that. and doing the proper things with our body. But we just mentioned charity. Charity leads to improved spiritual awareness. And I'll explain to you why charity leads to improved spiritual awareness. Giving comes from the side of holiness. Okay, a person gives, a person is immediately connected to holiness. Just like the Almighty. The Almighty only gives and he never receives. He only gives. So the more we give, the more we emulate the Almighty. When we act like him, we act in a godly fashion. We attach ourselves to holiness. So the more a person is attached to holiness, you can't be attached to holiness without the Almighty. There's a law. He's got to give you more spiritual awareness. Without more spiritual awareness, you can't be attached to him. But since you gave charity, you deserve the right to be close to him. So by Rabbi Nachman, Breslov explains this beautiful upward spiral. When a person gives charity, a person literally earns the right. He buys the right to be closer to Hashem. Because Hashem must give him, Hashem has his own law, that when a person gives charity, and charity is not only with money, charity is also helping a little old lady cross the street. Charity is helping the elderly woman, so she can't lift her groceries on the bus, help her alight the bus, get on the bus. This is all wonderful charity. And it's a charity with your whole body. And it's even charity better than 10 cents because she can't pay somebody 10 cents to help her. So 10 cents in the charity box, that's great. That's good for the soul. But helping someone with your own body, doing a physical favor for a person, this right away ups the giving-receiving problem. This is charity for another human being. It makes the world a better place. Oh, the Almighty says, who's my beloved daughter and my beloved son that's spreading this love and making the world a better place? That's Yesod. That's the foundation of the earth. That is the foundation of the earth. The foundation, Yesod literally means foundation, but it's your giving, receiving priorities. By giving more, you gain more spiritual awareness. And Hashem does the same thing. It happens right to you. Okay, so what happened? Here we go. Back. Okay, the evil inclination doesn't like what I'm saying, so have a little excuse for the difficulties. Thank you, Hashem, being back here. One of the great Hasidic masters was Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov. And Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov developed his life, he devoted his life to developing more spiritual awareness. And once he heard a dialogue between two Ukrainian peasants, and one said to the other, he said, Sergei, I'm so happy to see you. And Sergei says to Alexei, do you really mean that? He says, of course I do, Sergei. You're my dearest friend. I love you more than a brother. So what does he say to Alexei? He says, Alexei, if you love me so much, tell me what I need. Stop and think about that. Rabbi Moshe Leib, he's testified that dialogue that he heard from those two peasants taught an amazing lesson in life. That real charity means giving according to the needs of the receiver, not according to what I want. We looked at another person's needs. The Talmud says that a rich person who used to have a chauffeur-driven Mercedes and he became bankrupt, then he really misses that. He's all his life. He was used to that. So you don't give a person that charity by giving him $1. If you could drive him in your car and let him feel like he's being chauffeur-driven, this is tremendous charity. It's up each person what he needs. An old Hebrew expression says, La lashon ein etzem. It says the tongue has no bone. Why does the tongue have no bone? The connotation is that words easily roll off the tongue. So people often tell each other, oh, I love you. It's a great, very nice thing. How many times young people say one another, I love you? Do you know what love is? Do you know what love is? Do you know what love is when you're under fire and you risk your life for another person? That's love. That's love. When some guy's angry at his wife, hold it, time out. I don't care what she did. Excuse me, sir. You have 3 children? He says, yes. And you're angry at your wife? He says, yes. I said, wait a second. Before you continue being angry at her, I want you to stop and imagine that I take a knife and cut your intestines open with your stomach and everything. He said, what are you talking about, Rabbi? I said, oh, yeah, that's what she did. She did 3 times to bring your children to the world. Okay. She went through the most excruciating pain to go through the world. How could you be angry at that woman? And the Gevorah says that when a woman gives childbirth, her life is on the line. And the Gevorah says that 24 months after childbirth, her bones, that it takes 24 months to get her bones back together. It's completely, can you imagine what that is? Now stop and contemplate that before you get huffy and puffy. All right. Same thing inside a woman. Stop and contemplate, before you get angry at your husband, stop and think what he has to do, this 21st century economic gladiator, to bring home a paycheck. And it's not enough. And when you yell at him, you destroy it. If we would only think, and we would develop our own charity, this level of yesod, this level of foundation, the foundation of humanity, which is charity, doing for one another, we'd make our families better. There'd be no divorce. We'd make the world a better place. And not everybody look at the other person. No, I'll be okay when he's okay. I'm going to unilaterally start with myself. I don't care about anybody else, because it's not my job to correct anybody on earth. Not my wife, not my children, not my grandchildren, not anybody else. Got to start with laser. Start with laser. Okay, let's take stock. And this is what we do in daily self-assessment. What needs correction? Okay, so the way to appease an irate spouse or an irate friend or an irate child is to look for the good points. Look for the good points and then stop and think what they need. Get out of my needs. Oh, they're insulting me. They're doing me harm. Think of the other person's needs. There is a spiritual law. When you pray for another person, they're going to love you. Their soul, you're going to love you. Want someone to love you? Pray for them. Okay, they'll love you. Let's go to our seventh lowest sphere called Malchut. Malchut means kingship or majesty. Malchut is literally realizing that I know nothing, because the sphere of Malchut, which is Emunah, it doesn't have light of its own. It gets the light from the spheres above it. Okay, so when my own personal sphere, to develop my sphere of Malchut, I have to make myself a worthy spiritual vessel for divine light. I do that by putting aside all my own intellect, all my own preconceptions, and just plugging myself into divine wisdom. So that is why at the very beginning of Kabbalistic teachings, Rabbi Chaim Vital says in the name of his Rebbe, the Arizal, that the epitome of knowledge, listen to this, the epitome of knowledge is knowing that I know nothing. Now, an American doctor or a British lawyer or an Israeli scientist is going to really protest that. What do you mean I know nothing? What about my PhD? What about my LLB? What about my this? What about my that? We say, I know nothing in relation to the Almighty. That's spiritual awareness. We said last week, a person is a nuclear physicist. A nuclear physicist is a technician. Okay, he's a technician on a little bit higher level than a plumber. But just like a plumber is a technician, a nuclear physicist is a technician. But who knows? And sometimes I see a nuclear physicist can blow his nose and put the soil tissue on a table in a public library, not to be considered of anybody else, or to cough without covering his mouth on a train or in a subway. Guy's no spiritual awareness. Oh, he's a nuclear physicist. That doesn't matter. We talk about knowing not knowing nothing. We're talking about divine wisdom. And I put my logic aside, sorely limited human logic, and plug in to divine logic. And that is the level of Moses. Moses was on the highest level of Malchut, because Moses, the Bible testifies that Moses was the most humble man that ever walked the face of the earth. Let me tell you about Moses. Moses was a commando. Moses was big and Moses was strong. He was very strong. When Moses was a young man and he killed the Egyptian, he only hit him one time, and there was nothing left of the Egyptian. Nothing left of the Egyptian after that. Okay, Moses had his physical prowess, his spiritual prowess. Moses was handsome. Moses had everything. Mark tells us, and Moses was rich also. Moses became rich from the chips of the tablets. Was a rare, called San Pernon rock, more rare than a diamond. We don't even know where to find them anymore. They're once on Mount Sinai. Don't even know. This is what the tablets were made out of. And Moses had the chips. Moses was super rich. Moses didn't care about money. He cared about Hashem. And why was he so humble? Because he didn't look at other people. He looked at his level compared to Hashem. So compared to Hashem, he knows nothing. He knows Hashem. And that's why we can't understand in Exodus, in the first chapter of Exodus, Moses is arguing with Hashem. Hashem says, go down to Egypt, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And Moses says to Hashem, who am I? Who am I? How many people would say, okay, Hashem, I want you to be the prime minister of Israel. I want you to be a member of parliament in England. I want you to be a U.S. senator. Oh, they're jumping. They're right away. They think about the company car, the Volvo, whatever. Oh, Hashem with Moses. And same thing with the prophets. The prophets. Hashem tells the prophets, it tells us, Isaiah, go be a prophet, go spread my prophecy. Isaiah says, my mouth is spoiled. I can't, my mouth, I can't even talk. I say something divine. Jeremiah, the same thing. Jeremiah, the prophets, they saw themselves in such low. These are the ones that Hashem wanted because they knew they know nothing. This is Balchut. When we have genuine modesty, and genuine modesty, it resembles a clean crystal glass. When you want to drink fine wine and you've got $100 bottle of wine, you don't pour it into a dirty glass. You know, it's not a beer that costs $5. $100 bottle of wine, you want a clean crystal glass that shines. And even when you go to a fancy restaurant, the waiter, he takes that cloth and he double wipes it, even though it's been clean, double wipes it, make sure it's clean crystal. And that is the soul. The soul has to be a clean crystal vessel suitable for divine light. Okay, so these are our seven spheres. And once again, Chesed, inner peace, the Gevorah, our confidence, the Tiferet, the beauty, the Netzach, body, soul priorities, and hold that splendor, doing the right thing, Yesod, when we're charitable, Malchut, knowing that we don't know a thing. Can go ahead tomorrow, God willing. This will be posted on laserbeams.com. You can go on laserbeams.com and see previous lessons. And right now, before we answer questions, we want everyone with a lovely, lovely, lovely week.